Another one of the glorious Red Sky poets wasn't actually a poet. He was a writer. He was of a sort. He was a prose writer, right? Elliott Bronstein. The way I was introduced to the Red Sky group was that I moved into a house where Joanne and Gita and Elliott lived together.
And Joanne. Oh, yeah, sorry.
I said Joanne, yeah. Joanne, Gita, and Elliott lived together in a house on Ravenna Boulevard, and so I moved into that home. I didn't know any of these people, and that's how I met Elliott. And Joanne introduced me to Bill, and Bill introduced me to everybody else. So that's how that's how I met everybody here. So Elliott, as we know, Elliott generally wrote prose work, but here is something he wrote. Elliott wrote me a note, said, "Thanks again for pulling this together. Here's something I wrote for Bill. Actually tried to write a poem."
Oh.
Yeah, Elliott Bronstein.
For God's sake. Love to all, Elliott. It's called One More Poem for Bill. His twisted grin we remember. His wicked glint and sandy voice. He was a light that shines through the night. The rain falls tonight. It rolls along the skylight like sand, like a brush on a snare. Night becomes morning, rain, sand, that voice. Was it sand or gravel? Brush on a snare. A table in the back, they're not even listening. Pure poetry. I'll tell you. That was Elliott. So, a couple of things, you know, that I said earlier. Bill brought me to the Slated for Demolition performance that Joe Keppler put on way back when, and it was that evening, it was that night where I met Sarah. And here is the contact sheet of the photographs that I took that night. And literally the very last photo, you can see right here this little thing with the little tab at the end. The very last photo. There's Don Wilson. There's Joe Keppler. There's Michael Haro. And there's Sarah Dallas. And there was a time when Bill invited me to become Sky. I said I wasn't a poet, but I was a photographer, so I used to put together little photo things, and so I was in several of the open skies, and one time, of course, I had a big box full of snapshots. And so Bill and Sarah and I sat around with my big box full of snapshots and pawed through them, and we took them all, and what we would do is we put one snapshot and glued them at one page. And we had 400 of these, and there was Bill, Charlie, Bill, Sarah, and Bill. And we put this all together, and we came up with them, and Sarah came up with most of the titles. Anna's in here, there's lots of people that are in here. It's fun to look through this. And so, but as I was looking through this the other night, 2 of the poems fell out. Two of the original poems, and there was one that was more art. It was actually the show, the more art show, and on the announcement was the poem itself. And then this other one fell out. This other one just fell out of the book. It's the Bill Shively Band at the 5-0 Tavern, the 10th of August. Her name is Danny, and she works the bar at the Spot nights. She's heard it all. Most of it anyway. And what she hasn't heard, she makes up. And what she doesn't make up never comes to pass, isn't real in the world. A smoke-stench, crotch-rot, eye-burned, mind-ripped, bitter-tasting place. The pool tables never die, and the possum is on the jukebox, and the racing forms are smeared with could-have-beens before she even comes on, and she never comes on to anyone. She always goes home alone. She takes the blackjack, the 3-block walk, the Lazarus Straits after the town shuts down. It doesn't matter that you can't believe her. Her name is Danny, and she works nights dancing behind the bar. Haughty buffoon, jade in the latest trays, points, spreads, odds, roll up her sleeve, wins half the time. She's got lips like front row seats, and a voice that glides like grease, pouring from an iron pan. She hasn't had kids, and she hasn't had a breakdown in 27 years. She's got a cat named Houston and 1 year back in Boston. Takes an hour to do her eyes and 3 hours talking nonsense just to close them. A bitter tasting place. The blackjack on the nightstand. Her name was Dan. So, and now we have the inimitable Three People Shy.
Yeah.